Mr. Chairman, and to you and the ranking member, thank you for holding this important hearing. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. This is an issue I've been working on for some time, including working as governor of New Hampshire with both parties to strengthen our laws against human trafficking. And I also want to take a moment to recognize Yvonne Ambrose for her courage, which really reflects the courage of all victims and survivors who come forward to shed light on the evil of exploiting people for sex. Sadly, that includes children like Desiree Robinson. My mom taught history in my local high school, and she always used to say that what kids need more than anything else is to have a grown-up in their corner. So I'm glad today that the United States Senate is working at doing that, being the grown-ups in the corner for our children. And I'm co-sponsoring this legislation because I really support the goals of this bill to ensure that justice for victims of sex trafficking is possible, and to hold back bad actors like Backpage accountable and liable. Look, I know there are conversations, we're having some of them that are going back and forth about how ways we can improve the bill, and that's part of today's purpose, to hear different perspectives. I just want, as a co-sponsor, to encourage these conversations to go forward, and perhaps with that, I think the Attorney General was about to add to answer Senator Schatz's question, because I'd really like to hear, I think we'd all like to hear some specifics about how we can make this law as effective as possible without the unintended consequences that we've heard aired today.
Senator, thank you for a moment to also respond to the question from Senator Schatz. Let's first acknowledge that there are so many stakeholders within the tech community who have stepped up, and they're doing what they can. But you have to have a concerted effort by all, because it's so easy to hide in the corners. But let me see if I can give you some comfort about amending the CDA. If it's tough to have a knowing standard for a company or someone in the internet space to know whether they are going to be found liable or not because they may be accused of knowing, think about what the standard then is for me and my prosecutors if I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they knew. That's why I think that we can amend the Communication Decency Act and do it narrowly. So what we're doing, at least on the criminal prosecution side, we make it very difficult for prosecutors to sort of shotgun this and go after people all over the place. You have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these folks knew what they were doing. Otherwise, I can't prove criminal intent. And so for that reason, if it's tough, if you think you're concerned about that stakeholder in the online community not knowing whether he or she could be accused, think about the standard I then have to face if that the doubt is, the uncertainty lies there in the evidence. I have to have strong evidence that I can prove beyond reasonable doubt.
Well, thank you. And I would encourage Professor Goldman and Ms. Slater, I thank you for your comments. Because my time is running low, I would encourage you and your members to be very specific about what good language would actually look like rather than raising objections. But before my time runs down, I did just want to turn to Ms. Soares, because we know that online sex trafficking has affected people all over the country. It certainly has in my state. One case that received national attention in the past few years was a girl named Emily who ran away from home. She was being advertised on Backpage by a pimp for sex all across New England, including in New Hampshire. She was 15 years old. I'm grateful that she was located, but my understanding is that under current law, neither she nor other teenage victims of online sex trafficking can seek justice against the companies that enable their exploitation. So, Ms. Soares, we've heard a lot today about how to change the laws and the impact that the changes would have on companies such as Backpage, but can you speak for a minute about the impact of being denied the ability to seek justice has on survivors such as Emily?
Thank you, Senator. It is something that we certainly witness as victims move through recovery and then decide to bring a legal action. It is an incredibly empowering and self-revitalizing in many ways aspect of their recovery. They're able to stand up and say, this happened to me, it was wrong, and someone should pay for that in some way. So, you know, the ability of victims to do that, as we see victims have the ability to do that in child pornography cases, you know, which certainly shares some victimology symptoms to child sex trafficking, is incredibly important and empowering for these victims. It also is an acknowledgement to them that society recognizes the harm that has been done to them, that it was not their fault, and also that they can move forward with their lives. So it's incredibly important.
Well, thank you very much for your work and for your testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.